Hello everyone. We are going to discuss class 8 science NCERT chapter 2 microorganisms friends and foe. So first of all, what are microorganisms? These microorganisms are very tiny minute particles which cannot be seen by the naked eyes. So we require the magnifying glass or the microscope to see them. For example, during the rainy seasons, the moist bread gets spoiled and its surface gets covered with the grayish white patches. This is because due to the formations of the bread mold. This is a variety of the microorganisms of the group fungi. So now coming towards the different group of the microorganisms. They are the bacteria, fungi, protozoa, and then the algae. Now the example of the bacteria are the spiral bacteria, there is rod-shaped bacteria, and then the example of algae, the Chlamydomonas, Spirogyra. For protozoa, there is amoeba, paramecium. The diagram of amoeba and paramecium is too frequently asked, so keep in mind this. Fungi example is the bread mold, the penicillium, and then the aspergillus. The virus are also microscopic organisms. They reproduce inside the cells of the other host organisms. The other host organisms may be the bacterium, plants, animal, or the humans. Just like the coronavirus requires the human body to reproduce inside and multiply many times. The disease which are caused by these microorganisms are the disease which is caused by viruses are there is cold, influenza, the polio, chicken pox, and the coronavirus. The corona disease is caused by the virus, and then the disease which are caused by protozoa is the dysentery, malaria. The disease caused by bacteria is typhoid and tuberculosis. So these are the diseases which are caused by these microorganisms. Now, where do these microorganisms live? First of all, what are organisms? So the organisms, anything that can live on its own, are called the organisms. This may be the unicellular, means made from one cell, or this may be the multicellular, made from the many cells. Example of the unicellular are amoeba, bacteria, protozoa, unicellular algae. Example of multicellular organisms, the human, cats, dogs, insects, flowers, birds. The microorganisms like the amoeba can live alone, means they can live as a single party only, while the fungi and the bacteria may live in colonies means they require the family to live. The microorganisms also behave friendly to us as they help in the preparations of the curd, bread, cake. They also help in the waste management as they help in the decomposition of the dead parts of the plants and animals, and hence increase the soil fertility, and also they increase the soil fertility by the process of the nitrogen fixations. The bacteria which helps in the curd formations is the lactobacillus bacteria. So keep in mind this lactobacillus bacteria which helps in the formations of the curd. Now there is an yeast microorganisms which helps to reproduce rapidly and produces the carbon dioxide during the respirations, and the bubbles of the gas fill the duct and increase its volume. There is a duct, and then the bubble of the CO2 gas increases the size of the duct. The reactions which take place during this fluffing of the duct is there is an yeast, and yeast takes the sugar and then convert it into the CO2 and then the alcohol. This process is also known as the fermentation process, by which we make the alcohol. So the yeast microorganisms also helps in the formations of the alcohol by the process of fermentation. So in the fermentations, the sugar has been converted into the alcohol by the yeast. So this process of conversion of sugar into alcohol is called the fermentation. So this is the definitions of the fermentations, and the scientist, the Louis Pasteur, discovered the process of fermentations in the year 1857. Now, medicinal use of the microorganisms. These microorganisms also helps in the formations of the antibiotics, biotics medicines, which is prescribed by the doctors. So the example of the antibiotics are the streptomycins, the tetracyclines, erythromycins, and then the penicillin. So these are the 4 examples of the antibiotics. So the antibiotics, these antibiotics medicines kill or stop the growth of the disease causing microorganisms. These are the chemical medicines which helps to kill and stop the growth of the disease causing microorganisms. So these antibiotics, these are made from the extract which are taken from these bacteria, viruses, or these microorganisms. Now the antibodies, there is a 2 terms, the antibiotics and then the antibodies. So these antibodies is produced by the body itself to attack, to fight the microorganisms which cause the disease inside the human body. Means the antibodies remains in the body and we are protected from the disease which are caused by the microbes. Means this is an antibodies are a natural immune to the of the body. The Dr. Edward Jenner discovered the vaccine for the smallpox in the year 1798. Now, the microorganisms which helps in the soil fertilizations are the bacteria and the blue-green algae. These are able to fix the nitrogen from the atmosphere. As the atmosphere nitrogen is complex, so these bacteria and blue-green algae, they break down those complex nitrogen into the simpler one, and hence they enrich the soil with the nitrogen and increase the soil fertility. So these microbes are commonly called the biological nitrogen fixers. The reactions which take place during this biological nitrogen fixation is the atmospheric nitrogen. This is taken by there is a rhizobium bacteria, and these bacteria are present on the root nodules of the plant. The plant are the bean or the gram, mainly are the pulses plants. So, and this rhizobium breaks this nitrogen into the simpler. There is a ammonium ion and there is a nitrate ion, and this nitrate and ammonium ion is taken by the root, and hence it helps in the growth of the plant. What are pathogens? So the disease causing microorganisms are called the pathogens. So the different kinds of the microorganism disease. So the disease which are classified as a communicable disease and then the non-communicable disease. The communicable disease, this disease spread from one person to another person with the help of a medium. Just like the medium may be the housefly or the some of the mosquitoes. So that's why these medium are called the carriers. So the water carriers, these are some of the insects and animal which act as the carrier, means which carry these microbes from a diseased person to a healthy person and hence make the healthy persons a diseased. So the examples of the communicable disease are the chicken pox is there is cold, tuberculosis, coronavirus, etc. And the non-communicable disease, this disease do not spread from one person to another. So the carriers examples are the female Anopheles mosquitoes, which is the carrier for the parasite of the malaria, and then the female Andes mosquitoes, which are a carrier of the dengue virus. So these are the 2 most important carriers. So keep in mind this. Now the human disease which are caused by these microorganisms, the disease tuberculosis, which is caused by bacteria, and then the mode of transmission is air. The disease polio, which is caused by virus, and the mode of transmission is air and water. The typhoid, which is caused by virus, mode of transmission is water. And malaria, which is caused by protozoa, mode of transmission is a female Anopheles mosquito. Keep the name. The female Anopheles mosquitoes relate to the malaria, and then the female Andes responds to the dengue. Now, the scientist called Robert Koch, this discovers the bacterium called Bacillus anthracis, which causes the anthrax disease. Means the anthrax disease is dangerous human and cattle disease, which is caused by the bacteria. And then the disease, the foot and the mouth disease is caused of the cattle is caused by the viruses. Now the disease which are caused in the plant by these microorganisms, there is a citrus canker. This is a most common disease which we see in the nodes of the sugar cane plants, and this is caused by the bacteria, and mode of transmission is air. Rust of wheat is caused by fungi. Mode of transmission is air and seeds. And yellowish when mosaic of windy, the microorganisms causing is the virus, and then the mode of transmission is insects. Now, what is food poisoning? The food poisoning is a type of the phenomenon in which the food get unhealthy, and if we eat these unhealthy foods, then we start vomiting and other stomach pain starts, and we get ultimately hospitalized. So, how can we preserve the food from the food poisoning? So by the process of the food preservation. So the food preservations, we keep the food safe from these microorganisms by the help of some of the chemicals or the food preservative. Just like there is rosemary extract, there is tea polyphenols, there is clove oil, there is spirulina leaf, and the protomines, and etc. Now, the chemical method of the food preservations is there is a by the salt, by the sugar, by vinegars, and the physical method of the with the heat and the cold treatment. So the preservations by the common salt, as we see the meat and the fish are preserved with the help of the common salt for the long period. As the salting is also used to preserve the amla and the raw mangoes. Now the preservations by the sugar. The jams, jellies, squashes are preserved by the sugar, and the sugar as the sugar reduces the moisture contents in them and inhibits the growth of this microorganism in the food. Now the preservations by the oil and vinegar. As we see in the homes, the pickles are preserved with the help of the oils, as this oil prevents the formations of the microorganisms attacks in the pickles. Now the heat and the cold treatment. This is a physical method of the protections of the food, as this is used for the milk protections by the process of the pasteurizations. There was a scientist called Louis Pasteur who discovered this method of pasteurizations. This is most important, as in the pasteurizations the milk is heated to about 70 degrees centigrade for 15 to 30 seconds, and then this is suddenly chilled and stored. By doing so, it prevents the growth of the microbes, and this process is discovered by the Louis Pasteur, and hence this is known as pasteurization. So this is most important method, and there is a machines of the pasteurizations. Now the nitrogen fixations process. The bacteria which is called as the rhizobium, it helps in the nitrogen fixations in the roots, and hence it increases the soil fertility and also helps in the plant growth. So this rhizobium lives in the root nodule of the leguminous plants such as the bean, peas, or the any types of the pulses. Those are known as the leguminous plants, so which it has a symbiotic relationship. So this was a whole process which was taken in the biological nitrogen fixations. Now the nitrogen cycle, there is an atmospheric nitrogen, and this during the lightning some of the nitrogen get broken down into the simpler and get directly fixed to the soil. And the process, and now the second, the nitrogen fixing the bacteria, and then the blue green algae, the rhizobium bacteria, it helps in the nitrogen fixations, which turns and fix those nitrogens, complex nitrogens, into the simpler one, and with the soils, and increase the soil fertility. So this is a process. And now this fixed nitrogen is back to the atmosphere, so that the whole cycle can be completed. So the bacteria turns this compound of the nitrogens into the gaseous, and hence the cycle is complete. Means we will start from this side and we will go to this side. Now the questions and answers. The fill in the blanks. The microorganisms can be seen with the help of a microscope. There is a blue-green algae fix the nitrogen. The alcohol is produced with the help of yeast microorganisms. The cholera is caused by the bacteria. Now the correct answers. So the yeast is used in the productions of the alcohol. The following is an antibiotic. There is a streptomycin is there, and then the carrier of the malaria causing protozoa is the female Anopheles mosquitoes, and that of dengue is the female Andes. So these are most important carriers, the female Anopheles and the female Andes. The most important carrier of the communicable disease is the housefly, as we have read earlier. So the bread or the idli dough rises because of the growth of the yeast in the by the process of the fermentations, and the process of the conversions of the sugar into the alcohol is by the process of the fermentations in the presence of the yeast microorganism. Now match the column. The bacteria relates to causing the cholera, the rhizobium used for the nitrogen fixations, the lactobacillus is used for setting of the curd, the yeast for baking of the bread, the protozoa causing malaria, and then the virus causing AIDS. Now the question number 4, can microorganisms can be seen with the naked eyes? No. If not, how can we see them? The microorganisms are too small to be seen through the naked eye, so we require the magnifying glass or the microscope to see them. For example, the fungus that grows on the bread is so small that it can be seen only with the help of the magnifying glass or the microscope. Now the question number 4, what are the major group of the microorganisms? Answers, there are the 5 major groups. There is the bacteria, fungi, protozoa, virus, and then the algae. The bacteria are the single celled organisms. So example are the rod shaped bacteria and the spiral shaped. The fungi are the multicellular disease causing microbes. Examples is the fungi, just example the bread molds, and then the protozoa, this mainly include the amoeba and plasmodiums. So this may be the unicellular and the multicellular. And then the virus, these are the disease causing microorganisms, example the coronavirus. And then the algae, in this including the multicellular organisms, the photosynthetic organisms such like the Spirogyra and Calmodomonas, means these algae can self prepare the food by the process of the photosynthesis. Now name the microorganism that can fix the atmospheric nitrogen into the soil. So example is the bacteria like the rhizobiums, and then the certain blue-green algae present in the soil helps in the nitrogen fixations and converts the complex nitrogen into the usable forms. So these nitrogenous compounds can be easily utilized by the plants for the synthesis of the plant's proteins and the other compounds. Now write the 10 lines on the usefulness of the microorganisms in our lives. So the microorganisms are too small to seen through the naked eyes. However, they are play a vital role in the environment. They are used for the wine making, pickling, and other food process. The alcoholic fermentations by the yeast is widely used for the preparations of the wine and the bread. The bacteria of the lactobacillus bacteria promotes the formations of the curd. The microbes used to reduce the pollutions, and they also help to increase the soil fertility by the process of nitrogen fixations by the bacteria rhizobiums and the blue-green algae. They also helps in the preparations of the medicines, the antibiotics. And write the short paragraph in the harm caused by the microorganisms. So answer is, the microorganisms causes the disease in the animals. For example, in human, the bacteria causes disease such as the tuberculosis, cholera, typhoid, and in the cattle, the foot and the mouth disease are caused by the viruses, and also the several microbes causes the disease in the plant. For example, the productivity of the wheat and the orange is reduced due to the microbial diseases in the plants. So the certain microbes on the entering into the body produces the toxic substance. So this leads to the food poisonings, and hence we fall the ill. So these are the whole paragraph regarding the harmful effects of the microorganisms to us. And now what are antibiotics? So what precautions must be taken while taking the antibiotics? So the antibiotics are the medicines which produced by the certain microorganisms to kill the disease causing microorganisms. This is the whole definition, this line. And these medicines are commonly obtained from the bacteria and the fungi. So the example is the streptomycin, tetracycline, penicillin, erythromycin. And then the precautions to be taken while using the antibiotics is antibiotics should be taken under the supervision of the well qualified doctors. The course of the antibiotics should be completed as per the prescriptions given by the doctors, and then the antibiotics should be taken into the right amounts at the right time. A wrong dose of the antibiotic makes the drug ineffective, so the complete dose of the antibiotic should be taken. So this is all about the question and answers and the chapter 2. So please do like and share this video with your friends so that it can also help them. So thank you.